Hi, in this video we're going to use Cora SEO software to identify factors that may be harming your search rankings. So I've run the software already for the search term SEO Tips 2017, and I'm looking at the output file. So in the summary tab of the output, we have all of our content tuning recommendations. This is the quick info to how to tune a page for this search term to have it optimally tuned compared to your competitors. But we need to go to the overview tab where we have our correlation data and factor measurements. So I'm looking at this, and what we have are the factors by rows, and then we have the measurements of the factors. So here we have the measurements by page, where for this row's factor, the average result on page 1 has a measurement of 52. The average result on page 2 has a measurement of 17.6, and so on. And then if we continue further over, we have the measurements of each individual result in the top 100 results for each and every factor. So we then use this factor data to calculate our correlation coefficients, both overall and by average value by page. And the correlations that are orange here are the ones that are statistically significant. So these are the ones where the sample size and the strength of the correlation combined say this is a significant result. And so these are the ones we want to look at. The blue ones were close to being significant but didn't quite make it, and the white ones were not significant. At the end of the day, you only want to consider the orange results, which are significant, because everything else was not. So the next thing we want to do is understand the sign of these correlation coefficients. By sign, I mean whether it's positive or negative. So a normal factor will typically behave in a way where the factor measurement gets larger the closer to the #1 rank position you get. So the more of that factor you have, the better you rank. And when you look at that, your measurements go up in value while your rank position goes down in value, rank position approaching #1. That's an inverse relationship, and the slope of that line is negative. And that's why our correlation coefficients are negative. It's because with SEO ranking factors, you want typically your factor measurements to go up as you approach #1 on Google. So a good SEO factor will be a negative correlation coefficient. Correlation coefficients go between values of 1 and -1, and the closer you are to 1 and -1, the more significant your correlation is. If you have a correlation that's close to 0, then that means there is no correlation, and the measurement appears to be random with respect to rank position. It's like you're flipping a coin for what the measurement's going to be. So if we look for factors that may be harming your website, we need to go to the other end of this list, because they're all sorted by correlation strength, to the very positive ones. That's where the more of the factor you have, the worse you rank. So down here we have things like the number of matches in your Google result link text. So if you're spamming your title tag to get your link text in the result to have a whole lot of matches, that appears to work against you. Here's another one, the one that correlated the worst, so the most damaging, was not having a .com, net, or org top-level domain name. Now, the thing to also keep in mind here is that things will often appear to have no correlation or this damaging type of correlation that's a positive coefficient, but it means the more you have of it, the worse you rank. It'll often fall into this area if there isn't enough data. But sometimes it will appear here if it actually appears to correlate in a damaging way. So you gotta kind of evaluate it and make sure that there actually is enough data. Because like for here, this one ranked with largely without measurements. And I mean, there are some there, and I can see why it correlated the way it did. But it largely had no data, and so you have to consider that when you look at these correlations, that it might be that it's harmful, or it might be that there actually was insufficient data to make a determination. And so sometimes you have to make a judgment call. But if you go and look and like, yes, there's a lot of factor measurements here. We got measurements from every site. This correlation appears to be real. Then you'd want to consider it. But by looking at the bottom of the list of factors, you find your damaging correlations here typically. And that's how we tend to find what factors may be harming your website. Thank you.